afternoon, everybody. Shouldn't give me a bell. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Louise, and I'm chairing with Lise today this session. So, Lise, did you want to introduce yourself?
Hello. Oh, okay. There's like a... Hi, I'm Lise, and I'm also chairing this session. I'm here on behalf of the Early and Mid-Career Researcher Committee, and Louise is here
on behalf of the community. And so just to give you a little bit of context to this event, a few years ago it became very apparent that the community and the early mid-career researchers weren't really integrating in TUE. So we asked a few people why that might be, and we found that some of the community felt really intimidated by people with letters after their name that were like super clever and didn't really know how to start a conversation. And then when we spoke to some of the researchers, they didn't know what they could ask people from the community. They didn't want to be offensive. They didn't want to compound stigma, and they would get super anxious. So Lise came up with this idea of really bringing the two networks together, and we've had incredible results so far. So the first year we did kind of speed dating, which was great, but we had to separate lots of people. The next year everybody just chatted, and then last year we decided, and this is going to be our winning formula moving on, is that in our host city we're going to get somebody from the community and somebody from academia world to open up the session by having a bit of a panel discussion. So this year we're really blessed to have our co-conveners for the conference, Dr. Andrew Schreiber and Angela McBride. So I'm going to hand over to them to introduce themselves, and then Lise has got some questions to just start the panel discussion.
Thank you so much. And hi, everybody. I'm Angela McBride. I am the Executive Director of the South African Network of People Who Use Drugs. Andrew?
I'm Andrew Schreiber. I'm a Technical Advisor at TB HIV Care and a researcher at the University of Pretoria. And I've known Angie for many years. And we worked together. I think our first research project was in about 2016 or 17. Yeah. Or even earlier.
So our first question to you both is, why is it important for academics and community to work together? And what are some of the risks if they don't work together? So Angie, did you want to start?
Sure. Thank you so much. I think the saying really speaks for itself, of nothing about us without us. And that really is the underlying theme of why we need to be working together, both as communities, researchers, but also because we want to work together to grow together, to learn from each other in that organic skills, knowledge sharing way. It's around not just capacitating and, well, it's not just about educating and creating data, but it's also a space for community members who don't really have the opportunity that often to learn how to build data. Unfortunately, we live in a world where we have to justify why we need services, why we need certain things, and research is usually the thing we use to justify. The risk if we don't get involved as well, and if we don't have researchers working with community and community working with researchers in a unified way, is that people who use drugs start to become subjects more than people. And it's a lot easier to build rapport. It's a lot easier to get honest, constructive input if you have a relationship with an individual. We are experts in our own lives. We're experts in our own experience as people who use drugs. And I think being respectful of that and acknowledging that, but also understanding that I don't know everything, but neither does the researcher, neither does the doctor. And I think it's around sharing that knowledge and building resources together so that it is nothing about us without us, and building rapport, building quality data, and ultimately changing lives. Andrew, what do you think?
I think the most important thing is trust. And I think one of the reasons is that we're sometimes doing research that put people at risk, and there's a lot of responsibility on researchers viewed as, I suppose, sources of credible information. And really, unless there's trust, there can be problems with the data. There can be data inaccuracies, that the questions we ask may not, we may be subject to information bias. That I think is an important part about the research accuracy is improved when there's strong trust. And I think we can learn more about ourselves as researchers by understanding and speaking to and learning more about people who've often been through very difficult times, but have also got a lot of resilience. And I think there's a lot of learning as researchers we can get, and that will improve the quality of our research. Also, it's an ethical requirement, and it's also a part of good clinical practice to really engage meaningfully with people who use drugs, or and co-develop protocols, research priorities, and, as you said, develop together. And I think in collaboration, we've been part of generating this evidence base and this good practice in South Africa through going through some challenging times, but I think working together. I think it's been really useful.
So can I just add to that then, Andrew? So you talked about it's an ethical requirement in a lot of research proposals and for research grants. And as somebody that's peer reviewed those, I'm often struck by meaningful ones and tokenistic, like tick box. How do we ensure that it's not a tick box exercise?
Yeah, I don't think it's the kind of thing that you can police. I think it's around, as a researcher, I think you find more fulfillment and the quality of the work is better. And that, I think, means you're more likely to have good outcomes, more likely to publish papers, more likely to have future research opportunities. So I think it's really something that needs to be internalized. And I think by role modeling how it should be done, then it just becomes part of practice. But I don't think it's something that should be policed necessarily. But if there is unethical practice, of course, then something should be done. I don't know if you want to add. Yeah.
I just wanted, thanks. You know, one of the things that inspired the networking event a few years ago is, you know, as someone who did a PhD and then being reliant on my supervisors, because I was new to Hep C. I had no idea what hepatitis C was when I started my PhD. I didn't know anything about this space, and so being reliant on my supervisors and their contacts, and they were just not community engaged people. And so what are your suggestions for early and mid-career researchers to be able to engage with their local communities?
So we're really lucky, and I'm really grateful that we're having this before the conference, because this is the perfect opportunity for that. We have about 500 people from all walks of life, all levels of expertise, that are going to be here this week. And the best way to answer the how is listen to sessions, go to community-led sessions. As communities, go to research sessions that intrigue you. If it's a discussion around stimulants, go to that session and then chase down that researcher. As a researcher, go to some of the community sessions, and if there's someone from your country, engage with them, check in with them generally. And this is also something that came up last year as well, and a few times, and I think you mentioned it now, Louise, is it can be quite intimidating on both ends. It can be intimidating for community members, and for myself, I can really speak from experience, but it can also be quite intimidating for the researcher, because there is language and there is that respect. But I think, again, as long as you're coming from a space of respect, you're coming from a space of let's work together and not let me probe you and interrogate you and use you, that's not it. So as long as it's coming from that space of respect, as long as you're acknowledging, I know Insu sent out an amazing language guide, and that can also help a lot. And if you're putting in the effort, if you're putting in the energy to be respectful and engaging, do so. And really, really take advantage of these spaces. Insu is wonderful in bringing community together, researchers together, medical professionals, everything. It's a real cornucopia of uniqueness, and there is overlap as well. So reach out to each other. Don't be scared. Thankfully, there's alcohol involved as well at times. A little bit of liquid courage. If you like other things too, well, there's that. It's unofficially. I'm sorry. But yeah, I think just engage and be kind and be respectful. But I promise most people don't bite unless you ask. So.
Yeah, I suppose outside of the conference, there can be practical things like having advisory groups for studies, but I think they're often tokenistic, or often they have them and they're established, but they don't actually bring in people that still have connectedness with the community. So I think there are many advisory groups that have people with lived experience several years ago, or they're people that might use substances that are not relevant to what's being investigated. So I think using that mechanism is one really practical thing that researchers can do. Mm-hmm. I also think that if you're engaged in issues of focus, you may come across people in various platforms, often I think of advocacy activities or campaigns where you can foster potential collaborative opportunities. I think there are lots of opportunities where funding has actually supported some of my work through SANPUD, to be a technical advisor and help some of the SANPUD staff around their research capabilities. So I think it's not only this one-way power dynamic, and there can also be this co-development of a joint project, or reviewing things, or putting in a joint response to a policy issue. I think those are often good ways of collaborating, is that if there's a problem or if there's a human rights violation, I think that may happen in the context of research or in context of projects where people are affiliated. It can really show solidarity and trust, and I think that's probably something that researchers and clinicians can be very powerful, and just be a good partnership.
So with that,
sorry, my just kind of adding a little bit as well. I know Input is working, and there's actually this really cool research program or research project that is happening at the moment, and it's involved a lot of networks across the world. Input is involved, SANPUD's involved. I'm not going to name everybody, but a lot of the networks are here, and I think that's also something to keep in mind, is that there are networks of people who use drugs in, maybe not in your country, but more than likely in your region. And I would encourage people to check out the Input website. There's a lot of resources there, and there's also some showcasing on this unit aid program that's happening as well, which has its own independent, or it's got a global CAB, it's got a country CAB is Community Advisory Board. This is the ABCs and the acronyms that get so intimidating at times, but it's very much inclusive, and it's another example of communities leading and being involved meaningfully and not in a tokenistic way. So I do encourage you, if you don't have the space here, you don't have the time here, to try and investigate and reach out to some of the networks in your country or in your region. And if you're not sure, you're welcome to ask me, or check out our website, or check out Input's website, and engage that way. Yeah, thank you.
So with that in mind, personally, what has been the best thing about working with a different peer group for both of you? So what have you got from being involved in research projects, Andy, and what have you got, Andrew, from working with your community that you serve?
I'll start. I think I've gotten a lot more empathy. I was joking in the back, but it was actually quite serious, is that I started off with my medical career And I stopped clinical practice because I didn't have very good bedside manner, and I wasn't particularly empathetic. And I think just finding the right stream in my life to be a researcher has now resulted in developing relationships with people and knowing that things are really difficult. Not always, but I think, and resilience. I think that's also that great thing. It's not this doom and gloom. Amazing people.
I think mine is not really opposite, but I don't know. I think on my side, I've done a lot of my work has been very much empathetic and involved and in a quality space. So it's engaging, and a lot of the time I've done work and we've worked with amazing humans and done amazing photo voices and like reports and things. But the challenge is that we know that our voices matter and we know that they're valid, but unfortunately at times, especially when it comes to funding and certain advocacy, if it doesn't go through a certain protocol, it's not taken as seriously. And that's not saying that it invalidates our voices, but it definitely doesn't make it's harder to convince people. So what I kind of learned is it's quite tricky. It's not as easy as, you know, doing some interviews and there you go. There's ethic approval. You got to go through ethical approval, paperwork. But that kind of again is why working together as academics, community research, you know, in unity is because I get to learn those things. I don't have to do it on my own. I'm mentored and guided on how to make sure that those T's are crossed and I's are dotted. Sorry, I usually get them the wrong way around. Because that is a case. It's like, I don't want my voice to be not taken seriously, but unfortunately, if it's written in a personal way, it is not going to be taken as seriously versus if there's a little number at the top and there's like a reference, or if there's or a few, I don't know, additional names on the top. It's not taking away from the experience and it's not taking away from the importance of the information, but it just sometimes makes it seem a little bit more to the academics in that space, and I suppose for the funders as well, it's a little bit more valid in that sense. So, yeah.
And I guess there's something about, there's something about really valuing and protecting that relationship and those voices, because if we do get it wrong, it could potentially stop other people coming forward. So yeah. We're reliably told that people are eating our food, so we're just going to have 5 minutes for any questions that you'd like to ask any of the panel, and then we will let you go and get food and drink. The ask is that you talk to somebody that you don't know. You know, this is all about that collaboration. It's all about kind of meeting somebody tonight that you can see about the conference in the next couple of days and go, hey, what session have you been to? Or I'm going to this. You know, we've seen beautiful connections of people that were strangers in Glasgow that 3 years on they're hanging out. That was the aim. So, are there any questions before we let you get food and drink? I shouldn't have said that.
I just want to point out one thing that's been really beautiful to hear in the convo is that when we do this session, and like we've got another session, Louise and I, a workshop later in the week, and we talk about like research, you know, bringing the academics and community together for research. And both of you have spoken about it's not just about the research. It's, you know, it's all these cross-collaboration opportunities that drive the same agenda with different, you know, that support and enhance the outcomes that everyone's working towards by doing it together. You know, it develops the funding, you know, for the services, for the whatever it is, but also, you know, the advocacy, and that's just such an important piece. So I just wanted to touch on that because it's been great to hear. Thank you.
And as Lee said, we've got a workshop on Thursday lunchtime. We'd love to see as many of you there. you know, really, because we want to grow this, we really want INSU to be the flagship for community and researchers working together. You know, we want to, I go to a conference in England called the BASIL, British Association of the Study of Liver. Nobody talks to me. You know, and I did credit card fraud for years. I can talk to anybody, anywhere. You know, yeah. So it, you know, this is. I felt the love when I first came to INSU in 2018. I'm still here. You know, that is because of the relationships. It's because the president and other key people talked to me. You know, I felt valued. I felt heard. I felt important. You know, and there are people in this room, no matter where you've come from or what you identify with, who will relate to that. You know, we all matter. We all want to be noticed. We all want to be part of. I believe that's human psychology. So, please, Belta, you're going to ask a question. Perfect. I'll just talk otherwise.
Thank you so much for this event. And my question is about when we speak about researchers and communities, I think it's really about share experience of researching communities to increase results of researchers. And maybe you know some best lessons and practices about how to explain easy language, simple language to communities about, for example, story of researchers with these all ethical principles about researchers of humans, because it's a really interesting topic, but for me it was not by simple language, because so many details in this. And also my second question, maybe you know about best practices as such, for example, on scientist conferences about researchers to have some points, options to invite their key communities as experts to participate in the panel discussions, not only as participants, but to share this experience, maybe you know, or have some plans about this to develop this way. It is to researchers.
To researchers, yes.
Sorry, Andrew.
Yeah.
You can ask me later.
That'll be you as well.
No, I think simplifying things is often really difficult, and we don't do it well enough. And one of the key challenges, I think, is, for me, is the time pressure, is we want to get things done really quickly. And I think it's about having more time, spending more time developing the relationships, and probably doing smaller chunks of the research process over a longer period of time. And I think that's still keeping it simple, but it's got to be a longer term view for translating that information to be understood. In terms of the participants in the panel, I mean, that's definitely something that we could take forward as INSU to see how we might be able to do it in some future conferences. For people to be aware also, INSU, there are opportunities for curated sessions. So when the call for abstracts come out, you can put in an application to do an event, and those are quite structured for that kind of opportunity. So the Unit 8 project is doing some of those things, but at the moment, because maybe we haven't started fully, there aren't so many participants that are speaking. But I think that would be a really good take-home that we can do as an organization, but also as individuals, as part of INSU, is putting forward proposals with the inclusion of participants.
But I would say, for those of you that have been in the community day last year, the UNITAID did a roadmap of when the community speakers were presenting. It was 1 page. This year it's free. So, like, having been to many, many conferences over the years, this is the one that really values community, and it's not tokenistic. And, and that's why I continue to be a part of INSU. So, I guess it is just getting the word out that when you're putting in your research proposals, your workshop proposals, to think about the people that you've researched, the people that you've served, and bring them along for the ride. But I think we're probably 60-70% of the way there.
So this is a question for community members on the panel. And I don't mean this to be hostile to researchers because I'm a researcher myself, but in working with researchers, what has been like your biggest frustration in working with researchers and academics, and like how do you think that we could do a better job to overcome whatever that frustration or barrier?
I'm going to say really quickly, my biggest bugbear is we all know about word counts. We all know that in an academic bit of writing or an abstract, you put PWID. Please, if any of you are presenting, please say people who use drugs. Please don't shorten us to PWIDs. That's quite offensive. That's my take home.
Mine is definitely the language. Like it can be. I really struggle with big words. Like I can use them, but it can be simpler. And I think that's my biggest frustration. Is we live in a world where there are so many beautiful different languages, and predominantly a lot of things are in English. And not many people's first language is English. And I feel like the language can really be simplified and also to be direct and honest in the sense of the process. So I'm going to ask you this question, that question, this question. Then I'm going to take this back, I'm going to write it, I'm going to give it. So the whole process without making it simplifying what's going to be done, and also making the language simpler. I struggle to read some papers because of the word count, and because that, I feel like you can say a person uses drugs and then not use like 4 really big words afterwards. And that's something I struggle with, particularly when it comes to interviews, and also I struggle with all the red tape of getting this, that approval. You got to do this, you got to fill out this paperwork, that paperwork, you got to do your CV, redo it, and all this stuff. I know it has to happen, but knowing that I have someone who's got my back while I'm doing it, that's important. So my 2 is like simplify language, and second is like hold my hand through it. Like don't, okay, cool, you got to do this, and make sure it's done. Like, it's not that easy. If I don't have access to a laptop, it's going to take me a lot longer to do it on my phone. So I think that's kind of it, is that practice patience in supporting the person, bringing them on to share their expertise, but also for you to share your expertise so that they can grow as an individual. And yeah, the KISS, keep it simple, sweetie.
And I guess along with that, it's just check our understanding, because we're not, the majority of all of us, we're not stupid. We don't survive ways and means of using drugs, you know. So I've had somebody talk to me as if like I couldn't read or write, you know, which I appreciate. Some people can't read or write. I can, you know. So there is something about trying to be kind and compassionate and not being patronising. So we've got community members that are doctors and are all sorts of professional titles. The lady behind you, then that lady, and then I'll go to this person. So,
so just to the panel, thoughts about community members who had the experience of being capacitated to do research, and hopefully, but income generation through the skills that they've learned. We're always looking about skills development within our programs and getting meaningful skills. And so just thoughts about the sustainability of, you know, once the study is done, what can I use these skills, and whether we possibly need support so that people know that these are transferable skills, and that if you've been trained to facilitate or collect data, you don't only have to look for research about community. In studies everywhere, people are always looking for, you know, a research assistant. And so just thoughts about getting to a point where if a community-based research has, you know, someone's exposed to it, what is the support
guess I'll come to the panel, but for me, my years of doing credit card fraud have really served me well in my career, because that is such a transferable skill. I can convince people that I know what I'm doing and take people along with the ride. So I'm serious. So I think for us as the community, it is about, like you may start off with somebody, well, I'm no good at that, I've never done that, I've never done a degree, I didn't even finish high school. It's about reflecting back to people their resilience, their ingenious ways of getting money to get drugs, their perseverance with trying to get that drug into their body. With everybody, you can pull out those positives. And I think you make a really valid point about giving people the opportunities and building those in. I've been involved in some research projects that just ended, and people were like, oh, what next? But thankfully we were able to link them in the UK with some online learning that then upskilled them, that then gave them pathways to be able to apply for different things. So yeah. Andrew, please, did you want to add anything?
No, I just think you raised an important point, and I think we should consider that as part of the capacity building and have it. And it's really difficult at the moment with the funding cuts affecting everyone in research, not just the community members. But I think on the capacity building, it's on skills that can be used in other contexts. I think that's really important. Probably just giving people employment is part, and recognizing people is really important for self-worth. I think there are many people who use drugs who've been through a lot of challenges in life, that assisting a person with their self-confidence is a really important component that can help them for the future.
Thank you. Can I add to that? Nadie at the back? We've only got time for a couple more. So.
I want to just add to that, actually. And I'm going to be quite honest in the sense of when you bring someone on and you upskill them, that's amazing. I love that. Like, and now I'm going to speak my story. I was lucky enough, I was a peer educator, and I was lucky enough to be upskilled and able to participate in this research. And I was participating in the research, doing particular activities. Really, I don't want to be too direct because it's going to be too much. Doing paperwork related to it, doing the activities related to it, the actual research, and still my peer job. And I was not being remunerated for it. And that's a massive problem. Is that if you're going to, which is amazing, if you're going to upskill someone, they need to be remunerated for that upskill. You cannot be exploiting peers, because it is exploitation. By saying, okay, great, well, now you've gone in a course, I don't know, you were running a needle syringe program, that's lovely, that's great, and you were providing needles and syringes, now you can do some research, that's lovely, you've been upskilled, but I'm not going to pay you for your expertise, and I'm not going to pay you for the extra work. That ain't right. And I think that's very, very important, is if there isn't budget for that, then there needs to be budget made available. And I'm unfortunately that person where you can always find money to better support your peers. Peers should be a priority, and if you're going to ask people to do extra work, including research, including activities related to it, people need to be paid for it effectively.
Lady in the white, did you want to ask a question, and then you, and then you? Sorry.
Hi. I just wanted to find out how do we make sure that language is the community that we work, because apparently as researchers, at some point, because I think anyway, that's it, because we in such a rush to meet a certain deadline, therefore the language is really limiting to, especially the changes that we try to say this. So how are we making sure that it doesn't become exploitative
your question makes perfect sense, and thank you so much. I listened to that, and the bells ring in my head, and I'm like, it's unethical. Because if a person, not you, it's not a you thing, I'm just saying you in general, but if a person is sitting across from you and you're rushing through, and yes, in some cases people are in different socioeconomic states, and as a result they're willing to, I've done it before, I'll say whatever you want me to say if you give me some cash enough, like if I'm in that space. But that is not ethical, that's not right, and that's wrong research. That's not research, that's exploitation, that's taking advantage, and that's actually skewing the data. If you can't take time to speak to the person and explain it in detail, you shouldn't be doing the research in the first place. So yes, there are deadlines and whichever the case is, but slow down and do it properly. If you're not going to do it properly, don't do it at all. If it's not going to be inclusive, if it's not going to be kind, compassionate, it shouldn't be done. Then, reduce the amount of people you're working with, so that you have more time, and that you can make the language as simple as possible. And that is something, is ensuring, and what I've really enjoyed, sorry, I'm going to be quick, but what I really enjoyed about working with this Unit A program as well, or project as well, is that as the global cabs as well as the local cabs, we were all involved in reviewing the documentation. So the informed consent, or the informed consent forms, the explanation tools, all of that, we were a part of it. We got to read it to make sure we understood it, because we need to make sure our community can understand it. And that's kind of it, is that if you're gonna rush and there's so much pressure, rather don't do it. Cut down the amount of people you are, because otherwise you're wasting everybody's time, and you're going to get the data that's not fair.
Thank you. And then just this person over here. But what I would say, go on.
Hi everybody. I just want to compliment, and maybe I'll just add a question to the end of this. First of all, it's important for when you are a community member and you get this kind of words whereby you are being honored, and you are being because let me explain it from this way. You could have like a long time in life whereby you've been pushing, you've been trying so much, and you are not seen. And out of that, once maybe you go to a different program or anything, then somebody like gets you and see you. And but still, you are just under this company whereby you are just giving your all, and then they just never see you. And then you come to a place like this, and then you're like, okay, what's up? What is happening? And still you don't trust within yourself. You just don't trust, because you've been so damaged all your life. You've been damaged by not being seen, and you still ask yourself, what do they want now from me? And then you get a session like this whereby you get lovely people are telling you that it's important for us to just like balance people. It's important for us to just like see where a person comes from, and also because it opens things whereby it opens a lot, and I'm struggling because I'm very emotional. I'm trying to hold myself and everything. But I think out of everything, because I went through a lot in my life. I went through being homeless, using, and all this. But what's important is, if one person or two people can see you differently, then they open something within yourself to just like be that fire. That's important.
Thank you so much, and that's a beautiful way to wrap our formal session up. What I would say is that our session is due to carry on until 5:30. We are going to be about, Andrew's got to dip off to have an interview or something important. But we are here, you know, like all of us are really open to you talking to us during the conference. We'd be privileged. Lisa and I are hosting the workshop. The conversations continue. Also, if there's anything you particularly liked about today, please let us know, because it will inform what we do next year. Similarly, if there's anything you feel we could do better, and there always is, please do come and talk to us. But could we just give Angie and Andrew a round of applause? So please feel free to make your way to the centre and wrestle anybody that's eating your food and drinking your drink.